Brian Claypool, what about Alvin Bragg enabling and encouraging a liar? A guy who lied to courts, he lied to the media, he lied to the FEC, he lied to the IRS, he lied to the special counsel. These are all just his confessed lies, and there are other lies. If you're the prosecution, and you know that you've got as your star witness a prolific, prodigious liar, and you know he's going to lie again in front of the jury, aren't you perilously close to suborning perjury if you're that guy on the screen, Alvin Bragg?
Hey, Greg, absolutely. But here's the problem. Alvin Bragg could care less. This case was never about having facts to support falsifying documents conviction. It was never about that. It was politically motivated. And this case was dead on arrival last Thursday. I mean, that's when the obituary was written in this case. When Bragg's star witness, Michael Cohen, gets up there, and we're all waiting for this October 24th, 2016 phone call, right? And then turns out it was 92 seconds, and most of that was regarding, Cohen going after a 14-year-old, getting the Secret Service sicked on her. So that was their chance. We were all waiting for that one moment. Where do you tie Trump to falsifying financials? It never happened, and now it gets even worse, right? I thought there was going to be an evacuation in the courtroom today with the explosion of the prosecution's case just blowing up, all the fumes blowing up in the courtroom, because this case is over. And I've told you before, and John is right. This is sad because this doesn't happen in normal courtrooms. This case was always about juror nullification. What do I mean by that? That Bragg knew very well he had no evidence to support this. He engaged in character assassination of former President Trump for 3 weeks, and he wants the jury to look at salacious facts about Trump and rule based on that, rather than the fact that there's not a shred of evidence to support a conviction.
Brian, I'm not the Lone Ranger who has said, this is a case that would be brought against no one not named Trump. I don't see it any other way. I don't think any sentient person could see it any other way. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely, Greg. People have been asking me all over the place about this. 100% agree with you. That was the average citizen. Are you kidding me? You're going to try to manufacture an alleged felony to try to dovetail a misdemeanor where the misdemeanor statute of limitations has expired? We've got child predators, Greg, roaming the streets. Why is Bragg's office not focusing on that? Crimes being committed by illegal immigrants in New York City. Why is that not being taken care of? I think that's clear as day that that's what happened here. But let's go one step further. I think former President Trump has done a great job of twisting this positively, right? And it's showing in the polls, right? Where people are just fed up across the country with our justice system being used to promote a political agenda. For those, John and I have tried a lot of cases in the courtroom, and I want everybody that's listening, viewing this to know, this trial is not, it is how a normal courtroom operates throughout this country, because this case would have been thrown out from the get-go by any unbiased judge.
The mainstream media, the liberal media, Brian, loves to say a couple of things every time Trump says, Biden's behind this. There's truth to that. First of all, the Department of Justice, normally under these circumstances, would be filing paperwork in this jurisdiction saying a local prosecutor doesn't have authority to enforce federal law. But second of all, the lead prosecutor in this case was the number 3 for Joe Biden at the Department of Justice. He quit his lofty job so he can take a much lower job in the local DA's office to persecute Donald Trump. So, yeah, an argument can be made that, the Biden people are behind all of this, whether they're his acolytes or Confederates. They're involved, aren't they?
Yeah, I think the bigger question, too, is will former President Trump's lawyers make that argument, in closing argument? Or is the judge going to say you can't argue based on speculation, even though we all know that that's not speculation? It'll be interesting to see how these closing arguments play out, right? And whether that theory is propagated. And speaking of those closing arguments, I have a real problem, Greg, with this trial judge derailing the momentum of former President Trump. there should be closing arguments going on right tomorrow, right? Shouldn't the jury be getting this case?
Right.
We're coming off. Look, Trump arguably is coming off the biggest high on this case. Their only witness, Michael Cohen, is literally decimated, right? The case is now dead on arrival. You have tons of momentum. And now all of a sudden the judge is saying, let's wait till next week for a closing. That robs Trump's lawyers of an opportunity to go with the momentum that they just had. And now it's going to give jurors 5 more days, 6 more days to forget about how horrible Michael Cohen was on the stand. I have a real problem with that. Does anybody on the panel know why the judge is now pushing closings into next week?
Sort of. Go ahead.
You could do jury. Jonna knows this too. We do jury instructions before the court starts, right? If this judge truly cared about getting this case to a jury in the next day or so, those lawyers will be in the courtroom at 7 a.m. The judge goes in early. I've stayed on cases till early evening to work out jury instructions, sometimes even during lunch with just the judge in chambers talking about it before going on the record, so that you can get this done and not have the jury inconvenienced waiting. That's the reality of this. This judge unilaterally is choosing to delay this. And look, I get people are saying, oh, this case is complicated. It's not complicated. These jury instructions should not be complex. And that verdict form should have one question on the verdict. Did President Trump falsify financial statements, right? Was that burden met? Yes, no. Check the box, no, the case is over. This isn't complicated.
Brian, I've written in a column that'll come out tomorrow morning that Trump's not on trial for committing any crimes. He's on trial for who he is and what he stands for. And I think you know what I mean by that. He is an adversary to Democrats. Alvin Bragg campaigned on the promise to put him behind bars. All of these cases seem to have that common denominator. What do you think?
Greg, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, it's sad. I mean, we've been covering this for a month. I've been on your show. It's really tragic, isn't it? I mean, for people that have been in the courtrooms for all these years, and we see how regular courtrooms are supposed to operate, it's so obvious that this was a political ploy to derail a man who could very well be the next president. And it's a sad day in our justice system. It really is. And I'll leave you with this. I mean, this attempt to use a courtroom to demonize a former sitting president and commit character assassination has categorically failed. I don't think you'll ever get a guilty verdict in this case. I think you'll probably end up with a hung jury, and a hung jury is a win for former President Trump. But you've seen it, Greg, in the polls already, right? I mean, make no mistake about it, that Trump now leading by big margins in some of these swing states is also a byproduct of this categorical abuse of our justice system. Absolutely, Greg. I mean, if this case was pending in Central Florida, or, I grew up in Western Pennsylvania and Central Pennsylvania. That's a swing state. And I guarantee you, even if this case was pending in parts of Pennsylvania, there's no way on this planet Earth that this prosecution would have taken place. And just to illustrate for you how badly biased Bragg's office is, do you know how many times he met? Well, it came out. His office met with Cohen at least 20 times before this guy took the witness stands. That proves our entire point, right? I mean, maybe 1 or 2 times. I've taken thousands of depositions. It's usually only once or twice they meet with, witnesses for the prosecution. That is the proof in the pudding that this case was all about just promoting a political agenda, using a convicted felon. And I'll leave you with this. Put aside he was a convicted felon, a liar. He elicited 0 testimony that helped the prosecution. He even said, Trump told me to go figure this out. Go talk to Weisselberg. Then he backed off that phone call and even said, well, I don't really remember saying anything about Trump being aware of a repayment plan. So put aside all the bias, right? He still gave a big fat goose egg on any evidence to support a crime here. It's tragic.
Brian, I want to say many thanks to the 3 of you for being with us. We appreciate it, and thank